Hi everyone, I'm JP Robinson. Thanks for watching my video here today. So I want to talk today about 5 lessons that Charlton Heston can teach us about writing. And I thought of this really because I know there's been a ton of negativity going on. Maybe like me, maybe you haven't seen your book sales the way you want with the economy and the way things have been going, and it's just been kind of a rough time on a lot of fronts for a lot of us. So I thought we'd put that to one side today and just kind of focus in on some great lessons and some great truths. So first of all, my wife is a student at Liberty University. And I'm an online student as well, as some of you guys know. And so we're working on our different degrees, and we're both at our workstations. And actually, I think at this point, I was in the middle of writing doing edits to my upcoming novel, In the Dead of the Night. And I'm engrossed in this really story that I'm writing here. And she stops me and says, "Hey, have you ever heard the story about Charlton Heston and the race course in Cecil B. DeMille's?" And so I said, "No, I'm pulling back from World War I and writing, and I'm swinging directions here, but I hadn't heard about the story." And so she starts telling me the story that her professor shared with her, and I thought I want to share it with you guys here today. Because as I was listening to it, I realized that there are some really awesome lessons some takeaways that we can hold in our lives that can encourage us to keep on being motivated and really be the best that we can be. So let's take a look at these in a little closer. So first of all, the story is that Charlton Heston has been trained by Cecil B. DeMille's for that great chariot race. There's this great scene in Ben Hur, which to me is the greatest Ben Hur ever, and the whole culminating point of that movie is the chariot race. So Cecil B. DeMille's apparently did not want to put a stunt in there. He wanted Charlton Heston to be the one to drive the chariot. So of course Charlton now has to learn to drive a 4-horse chariot, which is a lot harder than it may look. So he's in there, and he after days of training, he's finally at the point where he realizes, he says, "Okay, Cecil, I think I can handle the chariot race. I think I can drive that chariot, but I'm not sure if I can actually drive it well enough to win the race." And Cecil B. DeMille turns to him and says this. He says, "Charlton, you just stay in the race. I'll make sure that you win it." And when I heard that story, I thought, wow, what a powerful message on a bunch of different fronts. The writer in me starts thinking and extrapolating and dissecting every word. But I thought that I wanted to get 5 takeaways to share with you today. So the first one we wanted to talk about was commit to the race. And by that I mean, when I say commit to the race, it's really important for us to recognize that this race of being a writer is not for quitters. If you are going to get into this and you're going to be a writer who makes a difference or sees what we would call success, you've got to really be committed to it. You've got to be determined to say, you know what, no matter what happens, no matter what I see or I don't see, I'm going to stick this thing through, and I'm going to commit my time. I'm going to commit to growing. I'm going to commit to becoming a better writer. I'm going to commit to getting my stories out there and to working and to marketing my books to make sure that I'm getting results. So the first thing is to commit to the race. The second thing is to expect a rough ride. Now, when you're looking at this chariot race over here, right? We've got Masala over here. We've got all this, this undercutting, this chariot, the dramatic things that are going on. Expect a rough ride. Sometimes people get into this and they think, okay, we're going to write my book and I'm going to publish it. I'm going to self-publish it, or I'm going to have a publisher get it and it's going to be smooth sailing. And it's really not. No matter which path you follow, we've got to remember that when we are in the writing business, it's a ride that is going to be unforgettable, but it's going to be rough at times. I mean, there are going to be times where you get those reviews that just make you feel like they've undercut, your chariot wheels, and that things are kind of like they're sliding and hanging in there, So we've got to remember that it's a rough ride on all fronts, but the point is to stay in the race, to stick it out and not to give up and not to step back there and just say, forget this. So we want to really sit down and keep working on there. And no matter how rough things get, remember, your job is to stay in the race, and it's going to work out. The third point I wanted to bring out is to trust the director. And for me as a Christian author and as a Christian on a whole, the director in my life is God. And I have confidence that whatever I'm writing, and as long as I'm trying to put out the very best that I can in there, I have to trust the director that he's going to make it work out the way that he has in his plan, because he's the one that's holding everything together and directing all the pieces, making the books get to who they need to get to. And I think that as Christian authors, or an author, you need to make sure that you're trusting the director in that regard to get your message out to where it needs to go. But the second aspect of that I'd like to bring out is actually to kind of, on a smaller scale, recognize that you're the director in a limited extent. I think that we as authors, we are directors of the choices we make and how we're going to market our books and how much we're going to put out there, how much time we're putting into growing our craft and becoming more educating ourselves and empowering ourselves to become better expressions and better writers. So you have to trust yourself and your own abilities to communicate. If you don't trust yourself and your abilities that you have, or if you're constantly second guessing yourself by comparing yourself as a writer to another author who may seem to have more success or may seem to have more credentials, then you're going to limit how much talent you can actually show. One of the things I always like to tell writers is you've got to believe in your story, and you've got to also believe in yourself, that you can project that story in a clear way that's going to be meaningful and impactful. So trust the director and stay in the race. And finally, what we want to do is the next step, we want to talk about training like your life depended on it. You know, for Charlton Heston, he had to really train all the time to get in there and to hold on, to learn even how to drive this thing. And sometimes people think, well, writing a book, you know, you write your first, your second, your third, your fourth, maybe the training is done. And it's really not. The training continues all the time. We've got to learn, we've got to continue to grow, we've got to learn, first of all, not just how to write great characters, we've got to learn how to make that book as powerful as it can be. But going beyond that, we've got to learn now, how do I get this book in front of readers? With so much out there and so much to distract us, how do I get my book out there? And that's where the learning constantly comes in. So train all the time, so that way you're actually staying in the race and you're taking steps that are necessary to get you to where you want to be. Lastly, my fifth takeaway from this thing was to redefine your vision of success. You know, one of the greatest moments in the story of Judah Ben Hur is the moment not when he wins the chariot race, but it's when he actually realizes that success was not defeating Masala. Success was reconnecting with his family. Success was rebuilding and forgiving and moving on in his life. And it was a complete redefinition of his view of success. You know, Masala is dead and things are over. You might think things are settled, but in the end, he's moving on, you know, to something better. And I think that for us authors, we need to also take that approach. Our idea of success is oftentimes financial, or it's oftentimes in reviews, it's oftentimes in this. And I will, you know, I'm not taking away from those things. I think those things all definitely play a part in what we're trying to achieve. But I had this really interesting conversation with my daughter this past week, and she's 11. She's 11 now, time is flying. And I was talking with her about what success actually is. And I share with her some of the things, you know, the highlights that have happened in my life, education-wise and financial-wise, different things that have happened. And I said to her, you know, through it all, there are times when I don't consider myself a success. There are times where I have to sit back down there and actually really look at things critically, you know, look at myself and realize, hey, you know, what actually have I achieved? And I told her, you know, the reality is when you turn and when you actually look at it, what we need to realize is that success is something that is often intangible. It is something that means something different to different people. But what it is, I told her, success in itself, actually, when you stop and look at it, is not how much money you make, nor is it how popular you are, how many followers you have, and how many likes or whatever. All these things that we strive, I like how it says, you know, striving after wind. But really, what success really is, in my view, is contentment. Looking at something we have produced and being happy with what we have produced, being happy with the results that we have. We're constantly trying to become better, like I said earlier, but we are happy with the product that we have put out there. And for us as authors, I believe that Judah Ben Hur can teach us that great lesson, that great truth, that our view of success, what we might first think, it may actually not be that way. And if we're willing to stop and find the contentment with what we have produced, then we can call ourselves a successful author. Those are 5 takeaways. I know I said 10. Those are 5 takeaways from Judah Ben Hur and what I learned from that story there with Charlton Heston and with Cecil B. DeMille. I hope that inspires you. I hope that it gets you to get out there and produce something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do try to put out videos 2 times a week. And it's just from my heart to yours. They're pretty much unscripted, unedited, but I just want to get them out there and hope that they're a blessing to you and help you keep motivated to do the best job that you can do in whatever you set your hand to write. Thanks for joining me.